Listeners, my name is Shannon Cooney from Merrick Property Group Real Estate Agency and a very proud sponsor of the Parra Cave podcast. If you own a property in the Penrith LGA or Lower Blue Mountains and would like to know what it's worth in today's market, give me a call on 0421 588 445.
Broadcasting live from the Parra Cave. Hello and welcome to another bumper episode of the Parra Cave podcast. My name is Troy Warner and I'll be your host this week and every week. And today it is episode 118. And today we're stepping back into the 75th anniversary celebrations, 75th year anniversary of the Eels in the competition, with an interview in the Members and Fans series. And today's chat is with someone who is a massive Eels fan like myself and many others, but is also a personal development and mind coach with his own business, Ian Hawkins Coaching. He's doing some great things in that space, but is also a podcaster as well with his podcast, The Grief Code, and that is Mr. Ian Hawkins. Now, during the chat with Ian, we talk about his love and support for the Eels over the years, including early Eels memories, favourite players past and present, favourite moments past and present, all that Eels supporting stuff, favourite memorabilia, season 2022 of the Eels. But we also talk about his podcast, his personal development business, and we also rattle off at the end there the personality set of 6 questions, and there is so much more, so much to get through and to listen to as well. It was a great chat with a fan of the Eels. I always love hearing other fans supporting stories of the team that I love as well, so it was great to have a chat with Ian. I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. And, of course, it is all brought to you by a major sponsor, Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Eels Club in the club shop. Also, a shout-out to co-sponsors Shannon Cooney from the Merrick Property Group, who you hear at the top of the podcast this week and every week. The Stubby Club as well. And listeners, for that best present for that sports fanatic in your life, and with Christmas not that far away, the Stubby Club has a huge range of sports merch and gifts to choose from. And now is the time to head to www.thestubbyclub.com.au and remember to use your Parra Cave at checkout for a 10% discount. Your discount code there, Parra Cave, for a 10% discount. And also, don't forget also Bo Cook from Loan Market, your local Penrith mortgage expert. From everything from first home loans, refinancing, and also your current home loan situation and more, Bo Cook and his team, he is the man with the help and the answers. How do I know? Well, Bo has helped myself and my wife Amanda with a home loan, so we have got that personal experience of what Bo and his team can do for you, and especially during these difficult financial times as well, and they will do everything they can to get the best deal for you. You can contact Bo today on 0401 213 236. Get in contact with him for a free chat and see what Bo and his team can do for you, and let him know that you heard it here on the Parra Cave podcast. Thank you to all the sponsors. With your support, it helps the podcast grow and reach more people, which is much, much appreciated. But enough of me talking. Let's get into the chat with Ian Hawkins. That's what you're hanging out for, not me. And let's have a listen to his rugby league story from a fan's perspective. So as Hindy says,
get a beer, coffee, whatever you want.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy, and let's get straight into it.
G'day everyone, my name's Ian Hawkins. I'm about to have a chat with Troy on the Parra Cave podcast. I'm a massive Parra fan. I live in kind of Eels territory in Thornley, northwest Sydney, and excited to be here.
And as you heard from his intro, my guest today on the Parra Cave podcast isn't a player or a coach, but, well, he is a coach of some sorts, being a personal development coach with his business, Ian Hawkins Coaching, which also has a podcast attached to it called The Grief Code, which no doubt we'll talk about a little bit later. But most importantly, he's a massive Parramatta Eels fan like myself, and with it being the 75th anniversary of the Eels in the competition, why not celebrate the Eels' history and have a chat about them and Ian's love for the Parramatta Eels. So welcome to the Parra Cave podcast, Mr. Ian Hawkins.
Thanks, Troy. I appreciate it, mate. I love talking Parra, so this will be fun.
Yeah, always. Now, thanks for joining me. Now, let's start off talking about a little bit about your childhood growing up. What was your childhood like? What sports did you like, enjoy playing and watching?
So I can remember a really early memory playing league in the backyard with my brother and sister, older brother and sister. And I must have been 2 or 3 because I'm not sure if my younger brother was around at that point, and them letting me win, but me thinking I'd done it myself, right? So that was probably an early love affair with the game, and the other memories that come up are sitting there watching those 81, 82, 83 grand finals when I would have been 8, 9, 10. So I do remember at one point in the 81 game going outside to play mid-game and my older brother going, "What are you doing?" But I was active, right? I just wanted to be out there and playing.
So you mentioned the 81, 2 and 3 grand finals there. How did you get into supporting the Eels then? Was it a family thing or?
Yeah, so my older brother tells a story. One of his best mates growing up was from Melbourne. He was a Collingwood fan. And so they basically just switched teams. And so he follows both of them. But he said that the Parra element was that they both just love the colours.
Okay.
And it was the blue and the gold. And I don't know if that's just a learned behaviour, but I'm the same. Like there's something about that gold in particular that grabs you and the contrast. So it's as good a reason as any, but he has apologised to us many times because all our kids are Parra fans and that sort of stuff. And we always the same answer. It's like, well, it might have been some tough years, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Would then those grand finals be your earliest Parramatta memory then?
I think so. Your childhood memories get a bit hazy. I don't know. I mean, most people our age are going to have those fond memories of listening to the transistor radio, particularly on a Sunday when all the games were on and Peters and Hartley or whoever else you were listening to, and then they go around the grounds, and there's sort of some of those memories that really stick in my mind, and playing footy in the park while having the radio there in the background, and then everyone would pause when something happened or when they went around the grounds. Those sort of memories. Actually, you asked a question before about what sports did I play. I played cricket and soccer. Okay. If I had my time over, I know I would have chose playing rugby league. I played some at school, like knockout comps and that sort of thing, and really enjoyed it. But it's always been a fan thing. Like I love the game, obsessed with the game. Like I love picking the game apart and watching how the players interact and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's always been a big part of my life.
Were you any good at rugby league, and then why not give it a crack as a youngster?
So yeah, I was decent for like the level I was playing. So knockouts, like we weren't exactly a rugby league area, more rugby union. So I think the one we played, I must have been year 12. So I scored a couple of tries. One of them was, just catch it and put it down. But I think there was a bit of work on the other one. So I had that natural evasive skill from playing soccer.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was athletic. Why didn't I play it? Probably, I'm not sure if also one of 5 kids, right? So even getting to my start in soccer took a fair few years. So I didn't actually start until I was 9. And then it was just like, well, this is what we do. We play soccer. And I do remember having conversations in my head around, maybe I should go give it a try. Maybe I should go give it a try. But there wasn't a heap of clubs around our area.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I didn't like doing things that were outliers at that point. I liked to sort of stay in the lines and keep in line with what everyone else was doing. So I probably didn't have the courage to take it on at that point.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair enough. In those early days, obviously there was the superstars of the game. Who were your favourites to watch play?
Well, I just love the Kenny intercept. And whenever I played touch, I was always going for the intercept. I was always looking at that anticipation. But obviously that whole back line was enormous. And when the Blues had from two through to 8, because the lock was playing at 8 back then.
Yep.
That was such a great memory. But ultimately, yeah, like Sterlo and Kenny were the guys, and particularly those Origin games where when Kenny played in the 6 and tore the Queenslanders apart, like just such great memories.
Yeah, no, he really dominated Wally Lewis during those games where he got that
Yeah.
man of the match and New South Wales won. And you hear those stories all the time of Queenslanders were worried when Kenny was wearing the 6, and they were, you know, I guess excited to see him wear the 4 or the 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of Sterling and Kenny, do you think they should be immortals of rugby league? It's a massive debate that it goes on every year.
I think they need to reserve. I don't know the answer to that, but I think they should reserve it only for like the game changers.
Okay.
And would you consider those guys game changers? I'm not sure. I'm not sure because history. It's been such a massive history. We're talking over 100 years.
Yeah.
So the Parra fan in me says, yeah, absolutely. But I also think we don't want to have it so there's like 25, 30 immortals. We want to make it just for the real game changers. So the ones that sort of come to mind for me, Cam Smith, like absolutely, changed the way that dummy half played. My heart says yes. My head says maybe not.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult one. I maintain there should be at least one Parramatta player, and that could be a little bit biased, but just a simple fact that they were so dominant in the 80s, and there should be one, I think. But it's a debate that goes on every year with a lot of players, and it's only a select few that get through. What about now or recent favourite players? Who have been some of your favourites, like in the current team and just recently as well over the years?
Current situations to the side, I used to love watching Jared Hayne. Like just that run of 2009 was like we went to nearly every game that season. Once we got halfway through the year, I remember the Bulldogs game. My wife saying, "Why are you still watching that?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I've just got a good feeling about we're starting to come good," and it all went from there. I love Fui, that wholehearted, like just 100 miles an hour, just giving it absolutely everything. The moment Dylan Brown came into the team, there was just something about him. And I have enjoyed watching the different people comment on him the last few years, particularly in some of the groups that we're in, and the ups and downs of that. And it's like you don't lose that talent that he showed in the first couple of years. One that comes to mind, that first year of Tim Smith.
Oh yeah,
like that was incredible. I love that. The back row of Hindmarsh and Morrison, like enormous. Like I love watching those two guys. And Nathan Peets. I don't know. Maybe it's something about those guys that ripped in.
Yeah.
Like I was never massively talented, like athletic, but I was someone who just gave wholeheartedly. So I'd like those sort of guys, and it was really disappointing how that all ended for him. Given that we'd had a good run that 2016, and I really felt for him because he was a sort of integral part of the rebuild there.
Yeah, no, it was a difficult time for Parra fans and the club, and as you said, it was sad to see him go up to the Gold Coast. So he made Origin playing from the Gold Coast. I think he's just signed a new deal over in England, I think, to play over there. So, but yeah, he was a fan favourite, and as you said, got in there, stuck in there, had a go, tackled anything that moved, put his head in the wrong position a few times.
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely a competitor as well. So you mentioned a few moments there, the Kenny intercepts, the Jared Hayne run. Is there any that really stick out from over the years as a favourite moment, either as a team or an individual?
Well, of course, 86, I was 13, so I have a decent memory of that. The 2009 prelim where they had the crowd split with the colours, the two sides, and I was working at Fox Sports at the time, managed to get like, sort of halfway line seats, like best seats in the house sort of thing. And the atmosphere in that game, and that run altogether, just something I'll never forget. The chanting, "Bring on the Bulldogs" at the end of the Titans game, the Dragons game where we got pumped the week before, and then we did a number on them. The one game that sticks out, it was actually my mum's first game and my young fella's first game. We were down, must have been 2008. So between the two good 2007 and 09 years, we had 08 was decent but not fantastic, and we were down. It might have been 22-0 against the Dogs or something at halftime.
Okay, yeah.
And we stormed back to win it.
Yeah.
That was a great one. Always good beating the Bulldogs, and more recently that Cowboys prelim final. It'd be nice to actually be having these conversations about some grand final victories, but this is all we've got at the current moment. But that Cowboys victory, that was a very un-Parra-like performance. The grit and the ability to fight back from those, when we got behind, and then different setbacks, and like that really. I don't know, anyone listening to this would know the emotion that they had around that game, but it really struck me as a real pivotal moment in our history. And maybe we did play our grand final a week too early, but it was like, you think of 2 years ago in the finals, we were getting blown off the park in the bigger games once we got through to the second week. But now, like, we had last year, the 8-6 loss. This year, we go a step further, and I know we've got to have a bit of a turnover, but the real, spine there, and then just the belief within the team has gone to a whole other level. I just think there's a big opportunity still for us to make a big whack in the next couple of years.
Now, sort of talking about personal development and coaching in what you're involved in and the like, before this year, the Eels hadn't made it past week 2 of the finals in the last few years. What sort of mind coaching do you think they might have done to sort of conquer that hoodoo and get past that week 2?
Well, I know they've been working with Andrew May, who's a mindset coach, and I heard an interview. He was talking to Laney and Reedy, and they were talking about the purpose and that sort of stuff. And by the look of it, they've done a lot more of the personal, like who they are. Yep. And you notice the stories that come out, they talk a lot about family. It's great to have, new signing so-and-so and their family come and join the Parramatta family. So that seems to be a big part of the focus, which I'm a massive fan of. Yep. And I like the fact that they're exploring new things. I tell you, as someone who has had a massive positive impact through meditation, I did enjoy hearing Dylan talk about how he playing next to Laney, and they were asking him about it, and he said, "Oh, well, yeah, he does this little 5-minute meditation before the game," and I'm like, how cool is that he's now having an impact of that in his performance from doing some visualization through that. But it was also interesting to hear him say, I don't think the coach loves it. Okay. And it's like, well, okay, maybe the coach might start embracing it now that he's seen like the transformation of this guy. I mean, we all knew Lane had some mistakes in him, and there was always like glimpses of really good things. But the year he's had this year, again, as a massive fan of meditation, I'm going to say that would have been a contributing factor for sure.
Do you think he should transform it into the team and try and get more involved in that sort of thing for the mind?
If they're open to it, absolutely. Like I know through my own work, like I started learning that sort of stuff later in my sporting career. Even when I say that, I still played football this year, soccer, football, that is. yeah, the power of visualization, it's massive. I, I would be wrong of me not to take this opportunity to say, like, I'd love an opportunity doing some work with them, because as a passionate Parra fan, I know we definitely have an impact on performance, but I also know that they've got a good team there at the moment who are clearly have made an impact, and anything they can do that's going to enhance their performance in that mindfulness space, yeah, I'd be a big fan. I'd absolutely be recommending them trying to get them all involved for sure.
Well, you never know who's listening, and you've put your hat in the ring now, so you just never know. Hopefully, we can get you on board with the Eels in the mindset space, and you never know what could happen.
Exactly.
You spoke of grand finals there before. Have you been to any of the Eels grand finals?
Yep. 01, 09, and most, what are we up to now? 22. Yeah,
Yep.
I went to all three of those. Unfortunately, 22 had a little similar sort of feel to it to 2001. Like the whole build up was awesome, but then never really felt as a fan in the game. I did have the courage last weekend to watch the first half at least, and it confirms what I thought when I was at the game. I remember turning to my wife at halftime going, we weren't bad. Like, I don't know how the score is like that. And we hung in there. Like, we really hung in there. I think lesser teams would have had a massive score put on them in that first half. So yeah, those are the three. Like I said, I was 13 in 86. My brother had gone, but it wasn't like, my dad wasn't a footy fan, so
Okay.
it wasn't sort of like that. I think my brother just got there under his own steam, and he would have been probably 19 at that point. I don't know if I begged him to take me, but it would have been good to have been there for a winning one at least.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was there in 01. I was obviously there this year. I skipped 09, only because of my best mate and I made a pact. Jeff made a pact that in 01, if we won, we'd go again. If we lost, we'd sit that one out. And then after 09, we said we'll definitely go to the next one, which was...
Yeah, you can't miss them. In 05, we'd the prelim final debacle when Heine didn't play. We had the Socceroos qualify later that year, and as a football fan, obviously a massive fan, and I nearly didn't buy tickets to that because of the hurt from just another Parramatta prelim.
Yeah, wow.
And then in my mind, I'm like,
Yep.
I can't be sitting here watching this at home if we win, so I'm just going to keep going. So now it's the same thing with Parra. It's like, I don't care what hoodoos or whatever. When we win, I have to be there, and even scrounging around trying to find tickets.
Yep.
I could only get 2 tickets, so unfortunately my young fella and his cousin couldn't be there. But you just got to be there, mate. You got to be there.
Yeah, that's what I've now said, and even if it's 5 rows from the back, you just got to be there. Be there live.
The noise this year, like I've never heard noise like it in a stadium. It I would literally like I'd come out of a concert there. So and I reckon 75% Parra fans in there.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
No, it was definitely, and just back to what you said before, it would have been great to have three quarters. You're saying 75% there. Have 3/4 of the stadium blue and gold, and then just one end black.
Yeah, it would have been.
But that'd be great for the big games. Just have half and half, or something like that, because it's good for TV. It's good for the atmosphere at the games, and Parra fans want to sit with Parra fans. They don't want to be with Penrith fans, and that sort of thing. So
correct.
that'd be great.
Especially when you're down 24-0.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, we're talking about season 2022. Well, obviously the Eels played in the grand final. But throughout the year, who impressed you the most in 2022?
Reggie, to me, it just dudded after Origin 1. I actually thought he was decent in Origin 1 in a beaten team.
Yep.
He just ripped in. And so I feel like he's gone to a whole other level this year. He obviously, when he came over, he had some challenges after breaking his jaw a couple of times, and he hitting the line like he is now. So he's had a great year. I think, we already talked about Lane and Dills, like they were impressive on that left edge. To me, the one that I think about most is Mitch. Even I was one of those ones. I wanted to believe he was a premiership halfback. I just think this year, whether he actually is remains to be seen. But I think this year, his control and his how measured he was, and how he just was able to shift the tempo of the game, like he was super impressive. And then he still had his running game. When we all know what it's like, right? It doesn't matter who you are, unless you were Joey.
Yeah.
When your team's getting beaten up, and you're not got any go forward, there are very few players that can change a game. You look at Cleary and Origin when the Queenslanders have beaten us up. He's been ineffective, and actually a couple of games that Parra have played in the rounds where we've really come at him, and Cleary hasn't been good. And I think grand final was just an example of that. Like that, in my time watching league, Joey is the only player that's been able to change the course of a game on his own, on his back, without his forwards being dominant. So to me, Mitch has just been the standout in terms of how he's taken his game to the next level.
And the good part about Mitch being over in the World Cup is he's captain of Lebanon. And the same for Dylan as well. He's going to get massive experience being on the world stage, and they'll bring that back to Parramatta and can only strengthen them.
Yeah, and hopefully for more than just 1 year.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. They'll be there for a long term, don't worry about that.
Yeah, I feel that too.
Are you disappointed with the players that we were losing, or do you think it's just it's a business and the players have got to look after themselves, or
of course disappointed. Of course disappointed, but it's also what I love is that we're not wasting money anymore. Like, we might miss some, but we're no longer having players that we're paying overs going, like, what are we doing with this player? And we're not being drawn into, like, the media game around negotiations. And there's obviously a process that they're following, and we might not like it and we might miss some, but so be it. Like, I mean, Reedy's a disappointing one, but we also know that you've got to make decisions at the time based on what it was, and so be it. I'm pretty disappointed about Papa. I think that's a big loss, because he from probably about 2 weeks in, I'm like, oh no, he's my new favourite player. And to be honest, when a lot of people, when we signed him, were like, oh, not sure, I actually saw those highlights that people were floating around. I'm like, I think Arthurs will be able to get something out of him, because he just looks like he rips in. And some of the young blokes we've signed for next year, I think, sort of fit that mould as well. So they might just surprise a few people. What was your question again? The players leaving. Oh yeah. I think of the other ones that I haven't mentioned, I think the Ikora, as he managed to stay on the field, more or less suspensions and injuries this year, I think he probably went to the next level. So I wouldn't have said that probably halfway through the season it would have been a big loss, but how he finished the season, it's kind of like, actually he's really stepped up, so that'll be a loss too. But I think it's like with anything, it's like when you're successful, that's what happens. And I spoke to my young fella after the grand final, and I said, would you trade a grand final win for never making the 8 for 15 years? He goes, absolutely. I said, well, you might want to ask some Tigers fans what they think, because they would trade that 2005 grand final for having that consistent top 8 performance ever since, because as fans, that's what you want, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, that might not be all of them, but everyone I've spoken to just says, no, we'd much rather be competitive every year. And I think we shouldn't lose sight as Parra fans that just how blessed we have been after some really tough runs, that we have been competitive. Apart from the aberration of 2018, we've been competitive now for 6-7 years, and we should be really appreciative of that.
Oh, no, well said. I mean, as you said, you want to make the finals every year to have that crack at winning the premiership, and well said. Speaking of being competitive, any favourite try scorers or actual tries that you've seen over the years that you've just gone, wow?
There's a couple that Semi scored
Oh,
that were awesome. The one I love from a couple of years ago was the Sevo fend on was it Blake Hford in
yes.
the Warriors, and the commentary my favourite in those few years is the one where Sevo steamrolled Tedesco,
Oh, yes.
and
Yeah.
and Vossi's going off about get an ambulance.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. The Hayne try in many of them in that 2009 run, the one against the Dragons. Yeah, it was a great moment as the Dragons fans all slowly made their way out of the stadium. Brilliant.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the two in the '09 grand final, because I probably enjoyed the '09 grand final most because we were in the game and there was like probably 90% Para fans. And when Guru Junior scored in the corner, like the noise in that place, like that was crazy. And then when Fui scored late and we were coming for him, they two tries that stand out as well.
Didn't he slam down that ball, Guru? When he shot, it was
Yeah,
like, bang.
I was in that corner. It was magic.
Yeah, and Philly's try, that was what, 30, 40 metres out or something like that. It was ridiculous. Great front rower's try.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite piece of Eels memorabilia that you own? Something that you really love?
I've done a really good job in the last few years of decluttering. So I have got rid of a few different things, or have passed them on to nieces and nephews and so on. I do have my brother's flag from the '86 grand final. So that would probably be it. But to me, it's like whatever the new thing is my favourite piece, because I love getting a new piece. I probably need an update on my hoodie. I've had this one for a few years now. But yeah, probably that '86 grand final flag. Maybe if we win, I can I don't know, do a ceremonial burning or something. I would never burn it. No, that's not the right thing to do. But maybe it's something symbolic.
Maybe take it to the next grand final as a good luck omen.
That's it.
What about a favourite Parra jersey? What's been your favourite Parra jersey from over the years?
Well, this is going to be a bit controversial, but I loved the 2001, I think it was, the blue with the yellow V, the gold V at the top. Mainly blue. But really for me, it comes back to the early '80s gold with the blue stripes. Like, we used to wear mainly the blue through the sort of '70s and early '80s, but then when the gold one came out, that's just the one that I was like, oh, I want to get my hands on one of those, and all I kept getting was these blue hand-me-down ones. So it was like the holy grail sort of. And then when I grew up old enough and got a job and had money to earn, that was one of the first things that I bought. Actually, a really quick story. With the bushfires on the south coast, and Parra went to play on the south coast, and a guy came into, I don't know if it was your group or one of the other groups, and said, they were talking about, they said, it's so good they're coming down. Like, we lost everything, like clothes, everything. And I reached out to the guy and I said, mate, I want to send you some gear. So I sent him, you know how many membership hats we get. So I sent him a heap of membership hats, and I sent him that 2001 jersey that I mentioned, and I sent him that gold, what was that, sort of mid '90s jersey as well, because I thought, well, okay, most of the time it just sits in my cupboard, but how good to be able to pay that forward to someone who needs it, and actually manage to see them in the crowd at that pre-season game as well, and send him a message. So that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, no, nice, well done, great stuff. Now, we know there's a massive Eels following around Australia. Have you ever been in anywhere in Australia and met up with an Eels fan and just like blew you out, blew your mind? It's like, oh, Parra fan in the middle of nowhere or something.
Yeah, all the time. I think it's really cool that in general it's just a knowing nod when you've got the gear on and you both got a hat on, or you've got the polo or whatever it is. I do remember somewhere when I was travelling around Europe in '98, coming across someone and having a great old yarn about all the Parra tales, and but yeah, I don't have a story that really stands out. But for me, it's a regular occurrence no matter where you go. I think what they did a study, didn't they, the Eels, a while back, and found that there's like 500,000 Parra fans around the country or something, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And when they were starting off that membership drive, and they're like, well, there's all these fans there, let's get them involved.
Get them on board.
They've done a great job with that.
Yeah, definitely membership records every year now. So, I think the next target might be 40,000. We'll see if we can get there. I think we had 34 and a half, nudging 35, I think, this year. So,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, it is. Well, let's just park the Eels for now and talk about your podcast, The Grief Code. What is the podcast about, and what made you decide to get that up and running?
So, like you mentioned at the start, I'm a personal coach, whether it's life or business or corporate, whatever it is. My journey into that space started with my dad's passing in 2005. So it was the grief of losing him, which sort of sprung me into action, but it was also all of the unresolved stuff that sort of came to the surface, which was still playing out for sort of years afterwards, of like my disconnect in my relationship with him. And I started learning more about trying to like heal myself and get better, and then learnt along the way and continue to do so. And so a lot of the people that I help tend to have had similar experiences. So I make that really clear in my backstory about that being the moment. So I tend to help people after they have a death of a loved one, or they've lost a job, or something grief related.
Yeah.
So it's just a no-brainer for me to be able to then interview people so they can tell their story of how they overcame their grief and how they are able to then demonstrate that the listeners can do the same, and sharing insights and moments from their journey. That my intention is to help to inspire people to realize that they're not alone in whatever they're struggling with, and that there is life on the other side of that, particularly by learning from other people's journey. And that was very much the case for me. I got so much out of learning from other people, and I want to pay that forward.
Oh, nice. So where can listeners and viewers find the podcast?
So if any of the platforms, if just the Grief Code podcast, Ian Hawkins Coaching on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, all the same space, and ianhawkinscoaching.com. There's a few other bits and pieces on there for people to check out if they're so curious.
Oh, nice. It's always good to have people like yourself in that sort of space, because there's always so much going on in the world these days, and to have people like yourself to reach out to, it's great what you're doing. So keep it up.
I appreciate that, mate. And I nearly dropped a note in the groups after the grand final loss, offering counselling, but I thought it might be too opportunist. But I think we connected originally because I was doing some game day meditations to try and help people chill out a bit in their game day experience. A lot of people were happy with the roller coaster that they went on, but for me, I like to enjoy the moment instead of having the fierce anger that used to overtake me if games didn't go well back in the day. So
maybe if the fans see Laney and Brownie and all the boys doing meditation, perhaps we can start it up again. And,
maybe we'll see how we go. Maybe that's a conversation for the pre-season for you and I, mate.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts of CommBank Stadium compared to other stadiums that you've been to?
I love it. Like 2009, when I had a holiday in Queensland booked and had to change flights, and it cost me over $1,000. The opening of CommBank, I had a holiday booked and I had to drive back. So me and the young fella drove back 4 hours to go to the opening, and man, so glad we did.
Yeah.
Like, what an experience that opening was. The noise, the colour, all those flags, and mate, I love it. Like I know Allianz is now open, and that'll be teams will love going there and supporters will love going there. But I feel like, particularly when it opened and people were seeing the impact it had for the fans, but also for the team, I think we were a little bit, people were a bit envious of us as fans, to be honest. It's a great place.
Oh, definitely. It's the best place to watch rugby league in Australia. A lot of players, they say Suncorp Stadium is their favourite, but I think CommBank is a mini Suncorp, but I think you'll see if the Panthers get approval, they'll probably try and build something similar. So, it's the best stadium in Australia.
Yeah, we can be biased here, and yeah, absolutely, it is the best.
That's it. There's no need to be biased, and it is. So,
well played.
Yeah, that's it. Well, speaking of, we spoke earlier, we're going to lose players for next year. As a fan, what is your expectations of season 2023?
I still think we're a top 4 team. I think if Josh Hodgson stays fit, I think he brings a whole other dimension to our halves play and forward play. Not to, no disrespect to Reedy, but he was still a young bloke learning his craft, and he still had weeks when he wasn't quite on, but that experience counts for a lot. So if he can stay fit, I think that actually really excites me about what might be possible for our whole, like if he's the focal point.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that can be have a real impact. And also I'm a massive believer in what they've created there, the whole team, obviously the coach, but the whole team. They've obviously built a system where players are coming through and having an impact. And I did a stint at the Bulldogs. Don't hate me, but that was sort of my first opportunity to get a start in the professional sports space. And I met a couple of the people at Parra, and they were talking about how the coach really bought in when he saw these young kids coming through, Dunster, Brown, and Marnie, and seeing the impact of the wellbeing work and the career work that they were doing, and how they were more rounded individuals. And I believe that, like, we're plugging people in there, fringe first graders, and we're making them great. And like Papa's a great example of that. Like, I just, who knows? Like, I still think we'll be top four, but who knows? Once you get top four, anything's possible, right? Like, who would have thought we were making the granny after where we were 6 weeks out, right? There were some of us doubting whether they'd make the 8.
Yep.
And I really like how they allowed, they didn't build too early like they've been guilty of in the past, but they peaked at the right time, or not quite the right time. Nearly. We're getting closer.
That's it. You mentioned Dylan, Dunster and Marnie there with their outside of football work sort of thing, charity work. How important do you think it is to have something like that outside of football to keep you sort of grounded and your mind off football?
I think it's massive. My own experience, while not a professional, when I had kids, it freed up something in my sport, like in my performance. So 2006, it's local Premier League, right? So it's obviously not elite, but it's decent standard. And like, that was my best year I'd had probably in my seniors, because I had a child and it wasn't the most important thing. And all the NRL players talk about that, how that was a pivotal moment, because it's like suddenly you've got this other thing in your life that's bigger than the football, and it allows them to free it up. So the same thing with what they're doing with a career, perhaps not as impactful as having a child, but giving them some purpose beyond just being a footballer. It allows them to football to apply the same things that they've learnt in these other areas and bring them forth into their football. And it allows them to, when you know what it's like in your workplace, right? When things aren't going so well in your personal life, it definitely impacts what's going on. The more they can do to help them from that personal perspective, and to have them feeling better about who they are and what they do, then it can only be good for them as individuals and also from the team. And then we all know the challenges that players have on the back end after they finish their career, lack of purpose and direction from some of those older guys. Making sure they have that so they can seamlessly transition, it's never been more important.
Yeah, well, we see Ryan Madison doing some great work with charity. Keegan Hipgrave recently retired, doing some great stuff with Waterability. It's good to see that these players are getting involved in that.
Yeah, and you look at Hipgrave as a great example. Like, he could have kept battering his body, but because he had something else that was an easier decision. And I think even for Boyd Cordner at the Roosters and a couple of those other guys, they've all been really, been building these things. And I think Jake Friend, he's got a couple of different businesses. So yes, they really gutted to retire, and they would have loved to have kept playing. But because they had these other things, not being the be all and end all, they got the best out of themselves, their best out of their career. But then when their body was telling them it's probably time to wrap it up, they could make that decision from a more at peace with themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you mentioned Josh Hodgson there. We've also got Jack Murchie, Jermaine Hopgood, and a couple of other lower grade players that could potentially play first grade. Who are you most excited to see play in Eels colours in 2023?
Well, Jermaine Hopgood, mainly because so grand final day we were at the Concord West Hotel, just there across from Homebush, and there was some of the Eels, New South Wales Cup team in the same pub, and we kind of left them alone. And but then the Panthers. Winning Panthers team came in afterwards with the trophy and sort of plonked themselves right next to us, and so Hopgood was just sort of standing next to us, and we were chatting with him, and he just seemed like a really good young fella, and he was more than happy to talk to us. He was real positive, and you could just see that just his stature and just his presence. There was a real leadership quality to him, and I think pretty sure he was captain of that team. And then I saw him in some of the celebrations after the first grade grand final as well. Like I think he's going to be much better than what people give him credit. That game where Panthers rested all their players, in a well-beaten team, he had 140 run meters. He'd made 40-odd tackles. Like, he's hard, and he looks like he's a real good guy. So I think he's going to be have a massive positive impact for the whole team. And the other two blokes, they look like they got a bit of go in them as well. They're aggressive, which is how the coach likes them. So I'm really keen to see how they all go.
Yeah, well, Jermaine's probably come to Parramatta because he can't get a start at Penrith in first grade. So, as you said, he was, I think, New South Wales Cup grand final man of the match. He was New South Wales Cup Player of the Year. Yeah. So, a lot of potential, and it's great to see. I think a lot of fans are wanting to see him in the blue and gold.
Yeah.
We'll wrap things up with a set of 6, the personality questions, the fun sort of questions.
Yeah.
This one's going to be a bit difficult because you've already sort of answered it, but other than the sports that you've mentioned, is there another one that you like? Actually, I'll change it. I'll change it.
Well, I can still answer that one as well. Because I love playing golf, even though I'm not great at it. But I just find it such a you're out in the sun and it's with mates and so on. But you ask your other question.
Well, I was just going to say, what's your favourite sporting documentary or movie?
Oh, the documentary on the 2005 Socceroos qualification. That was a big year because my dad had passed that year as well, and it was quite an emotional year, and that was a real positive moment in a really tough year. So that one, like, I get emotional every time I watch that stuff. It really, it really grabs me.
Oh, nice. What's your specialty dish in the kitchen or on the barbecue?
Curry.
Curry?
I don't know. I can't remember. I think actually my mum made it when we were younger, and I don't know. So I've always been a savoury rather than sweet. Okay. So. Yeah, I love dabbling in curry, and I like making it hot. Although my wife doesn't like it as hot, so I have to add in some of the spice myself afterwards.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not a hot person either. I'll go with your wife. Don't like the hot food. Who is the famous person you'd love to meet and have a chat with?
Well, so after working at Fox Sports, I'm not so taken by famous people. I met my childhood hero in sport was Alan Border, and I met him really early on at Fox, and what a great guy. Like, just a genuine, humble dude, and I remember saying to him, like, mate, it's such an honour to meet you guys. And he was like really heartfelt. Oh, thank you for saying, like, mate, what? And at that point I'm like, oh, they're just people. And so now, like, when I'd have people come into work and meet me, or I'd take them to an event and they'd be going, oh, that's so-and-so. I'm like, yeah, like they're there all the time. So like, for me, it's like just people.
So obviously completely different to being on the field, Captain Grumpy.
Absolutely. Oh, I have to tell you a Sterlo story. Okay. So do you remember when Fatty and Sterlo were a big deal when the footy show was in its absolute heyday? They used to do like nightclub visits, and they came to Patrick's at Pennant Hills here, and me being a cheeky bugger and a bit of a smart ass and a skin full of beers. I went up to Sterlo and I did went to shake his hand, and then I did the pulled away and and razzed him, and he got me in a headlock.
Oh, really?
He got
Wow.
me in a headlock. And I wish there were phones back in those days. Got me in a headlock and he says, "Mate, don't fuck with me." And I'm like, I was the sort of would be funny, right? Because I was just that sort of bloke. So my mates still give me shit about that because like he's one of my childhood heroes, and I've played a trick on him. He's got me in a headlock.
Have you seen Sterlo since and reminded him of that, or does he remember
I
that?
have come across him in the hallways at Fox Sports back in the day, but I just thought I'd let that one go. He might not remember it. If he's at the nightclub, he might have had a few too.
Yeah.
And if he's getting me in a headlock, he probably had. So I just let that one pass.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Fair enough. You're stuck on a deserted island. Which three Eels players, either currently or from the past, wouldn't you want to be? Do you think you would want to be stuck with?
Wouldn't want to.
No. Who wouldn't you want to be on the island with?
The
And why?
the one that comes to mind immediately is the Shack. They're apparently a bit of a pest when they were doing the remember when he was doing the Fooey impersonation, which of course you couldn't get away with these days.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a bit like that as well. So maybe there couldn't be two of us there because I do like that. Like I said, there's a bit of a mischievous side to me. Who wouldn't I want to? Who's someone who just didn't stop talking? Oh, probably Finchy. I mean, let's again, current situation aside, just his personality of like he's pretty intense and in your face, and I mean whatever's gone on now, like that's for him to get through, and we got to assume that. Well, one, like you're looking from grief, he's obviously had some troubles, and two, you just got to hope that his intentions were as well-meaning as possible. Yeah, sorry, I'm just taking this on a bit of a different trip, but I was just trying to think of the first person that had like quite vocal and rowdy. I can't think of.
It's probably a little bit hard. Yeah, it's probably a little bit hard for fans to sort of answer that one. It's probably easier for players to answer that one.
Yeah,
but, yeah. Nah, that's okay. That's okay.
I'll tell you one real quick one is I actually played soccer against Nathan Highmarsh.
Okay.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't notice for the first 10 minutes. My teammates went, "Is that?" I'm like, "Yeah." I did run into him at one point and I just went flying. Like he's built like an absolute tank still at that point.
What's Heidi doing playing soccer? Just to keep fit, is he?
I'm pretty sure his young fellas were playing soccer or cricket with the other blokes in the team. So something to keep fit. Yeah.
Good old Heidi. My favourite. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, or actually I'll sort of rephrase that, what did you think that you wanted to do in life growing up? What profession?
I had no idea. And I used to joke with people up until my sort of mid to late 30s saying, once I grow up and let you know, and know what I want to do. Once I know what I want to do when I grow up, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Because I just kind of drifted. I did a PE teaching degree because I wanted to be in sport. I got a job in TV straight off the back of uni, and then ended up at Fox Sports and I had a TV on my desk, and I could watch all the games, all the league games on Monday. Perfect. through the summer. The cricket was always on, so that really I stayed there for 18 years. It was awesome as a sports fan. It was awesome, but again, eventually it just becomes work, and I actually did fall out of love with sport, and it took me a couple of years to get back into it after I left in 2017.
Yeah, no, that'd be a great job to have, to be honest.
It was.
Yeah. And the last one, who was your favourite band or solo artist to listen to?
Living End. And it's interesting. So, I was a Cold Chisel fan growing up, or soft spot for Grinspoon, but more recently, again, I've been a Living End fan since their first album, but they've kept going and they keep putting out new stuff. And Chris Cheney just put out his own solo album, which I absolutely love as well. So I like the really upbeat, like hard rock, and he's got a bit of a softer side now too, which I don't mind. Bit ballady. So
yeah, what's your favourite Living End song?
Favorite living. West End Riot.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Just
Yeah.
before we go, you mentioned that you were clearing out some of your memorabilia and that. I must say, just thanks for the Parra Eels Foxtel remote
Remote.
there.
Nice. I'd
So,
forgotten I'd given you that. You're
nah,
welcome, mate.
there you go, there you go. So, pride and place, use it for the footy season, and then it can sit in the Parra Cave, and then bring it back out for
Nice.
the footy season. So, thank you for that one.
You're welcome, mate.
Well, Ian Hawkins, thank you very much for joining me today on the Parra Cave podcast. It was great to chat with a fellow Parramatta Eels fan. It always is. Some great memories there, and listeners and viewers as well. Check out the Grief Code podcast as well. And Ian Hawkins, thank you very much for coming on the Parra Cave podcast today.
You're so welcome, Troy. Thanks for having me, mate. I had a blast. Like I said, I love talking. I love talking eels, and this was a cracker. Cheers.
We'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Well, welcome back, and thanks for listening to Ian Hawkins and his rugby league support story and his support of the mighty Eels. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Always great to chat with a fellow Eels tragic and someone I would be happy to call a mate. And that, I tell you what, that is the great part about rugby league is the people you meet, and Ian is one example of that for me. No doubt next season we'll catch up at a game or two and say hi, but listeners, also, if you're interested in his podcast, simply head to the podcast platform where you get your podcast from and search the Grief Code. There's some really interesting chats there. Thanks again, Ian, for your time and your chat. Most appreciated. Speaking of podcasts, if you have a spare 5 minutes or so this week and an email address and you enjoy the content I put out each week on the Parra Cave podcast, please simply head to www.australianpodcastawards.com/vote and vote for the Parra Cave podcast in the Listener's Choice Award category. Simply in the search bar, type the Parra Cave podcast, enter your details, and then click submit, and then will receive an email to confirm and place your vote. Thank you to those that have already voted. It is much, much appreciated. Voting closes on November 15, so get in quick, and once again, I thank you very much for your support. Don't forget also another shout out to Jack's Pale Ale, a fantastic major sponsor of the podcast. Don't forget, Jack's Pale Ale is back and available to purchase in the club shop. Perfect for that Eels fan or simply a beer lover as well. Again, with Christmas coming up, it is a great choice of a present. So drop into the club shop and also keep an eye on the social media channels for what's happening at Parramatta Eels Club. Thanks also to co-sponsor Shannon Cooney from the Merrick Property Group. You can contact Shannon for all your Penrith and Lower Blue Mountains real estate needs, either buying or selling, and also to the Stubby Club as well. Thank you very much, and don't forget, when you head to that website, www.thestubbyclub.com.au, and order your NRL merchandise or other sports as well, EPL, NFL as well, Major League Baseball as well, if you're a fan of those codes. Get your merchandise from the Stubby Club and use the Parra Cave discount code and you'll get 10% off your purchases. And also share your pictures of your purchases on the Parra Cave podcast socials. It'd be great to see what you get from the Stubby Club. Some great products there. I'm going to have a look myself. I'm going to put my order in as well. And also, thank you once again to Bo Cook from Loan Market. Once again, his contact number is 0401 213 236. Get in contact with him for a free chat and see how he and his team can help you get on top of your home loan and find you that best deal. Please support these businesses that support the podcast, that help bring you quality entertainment each week. Share the love on socials as well. Thank you once again to you who is currently listening to this podcast for listening last week to Liam Fulton and his rugby league story. There were some pretty interesting stories in there and a few laughs thrown in as well. Let me know on the Apple Podcast site. Leave a review and comment, and let me know what your favourite story of Liam Fulton's rugby league story was. Would love to see some of the feedback there. And also, thank you to you, the listeners, as well, for listening. And don't forget, if you haven't already done so, if you're a first-time listener, maybe, perhaps, subscribe to the podcast. So as soon as it drops, you'll be able to listen to it. And also, encourage your family and friends as well to do the same. Any support would be most appreciated. Thanks again to the official media partner of the podcast as well, the Parramatta Times. For all your local Parramatta news, simply head to www.parramattatimes.com.au. In the meantime, stay safe wherever you are listening from in this world of ours. Enjoy the Rugby League World Cup, still happening at the moment. It's getting down to the business end of the tournament now with the semi-finals on this weekend. And speaking of the Rugby League World Cup, a shout out and thank you to all the listeners from the USA, UK, New Zealand, Ireland, France, and of course, how could I forget the Aussie listeners as well. Thank you very much for listening and the support of the podcast. I hope you really enjoy it. And please, if you do like it, leave a comment where you're listening from and what you enjoy about the podcast. Have a great week as best you can, and I will catch you next week for episode 119. But stay tuned to the social media channels to see who is coming up next. And once again, if you want to send a DM on socials, by all means, go right ahead. I'm always up for a chat about the greatest game of all, and also the Parramatta Eels as well. Or if you just simply want to send a message about who you would like to see come on the podcast for a chat, and I'll see if I can get them on the show. But to sign off the show, and as I always say, the Parra Cave podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Parra. Go the Kangaroos.